Throughout October, progressive-themed entertainment failed for all its pushing, imploring, and cajoling to budge the stubborn mule of market forces. October saw the director of gay rom-com Bros venting his frustration on Twitter about his film's poor box office returns, the cancellation, due to lack of sales, of a bisexual Superman comic, and Comcast finally pulling the plug on gaming network G4TV after one of its hosts alienated the fanbase months prior by delivering a scolding lecture on sexism and unconscious bias. I've said many times that I'm generally liberal and sympathetic to liberal causes. But when liberalism and progressivism is expressed in ways that are overbearing, disproportionate, prissy, and conceited, and when creators who have saturated their entertainment products with identity politics act incredulous or even desperate that their products are bombing or getting cancelled, then it drives me up the wall, around the bend, around the twist, crazy, mental, to distraction, to drink. Between the generally cosmopolitan and liberal mainstream media, which will benignly and reflexively come down on the side of progressive entertainment in the culture wars, and a generally libertarian anti-woke faction on the internet, there is no robust, generally liberal space where the indulgent, flaky excesses of identity politics are checked and held to account by its own. It's lonely out here. Join me. Superman, Son of Kal-El is a DC comic book series about a bisexual Superman. The series' 18th edition will be released in December and is the final edition of the series after only having debuted last year. John Kent, the protagonist of the series, is the 17-year-old son of Clark Kent and Lois Lane. The new young Superman, as well as being adapted into a symbol of sexual diversity and representation, is molded further to reflect the world we live in today, using his powers to tackle issues that, by extraordinary coincidence, reflect the values and politics and self-inserts of the author, such as climate change and the deportation of refugees. New Superman had to have new fights, real-world problems, said the series author Tom Taylor. Problems he could stand up to as one of the most powerful people in the world. In the 5th edition of the series, John Kent begins a romantic relationship with his male friend. The idea of replacing Clark Kent with another straight white savior felt like a missed opportunity, said Taylor. Readers felt otherwise, judging that it is kind of lame and aggravating for an author to take a beloved legacy character they had no part in imagining or developing and using it as a vehicle for their ideological views on sexuality and other current political and social issues. The comic has been cancelled due to plummeting sales. Imagine, if you will, that a conservative artist was in charge of the young Superman comic and imposed his worldviews and ideology into it. Imagine that he took the premise that the young Superman wanted to return to his family's roots in Kansas, where he found himself connecting with Christianity, and in particular evangelical Christianity, and then wanted to use his powers for good, to promote those evangelical values and traditional family values. If confronted with such a comic, liberal readers would be driven up the wall, around the bend, around the twist, crazy, mental, to distraction, and to drink. And, just as importantly, they wouldn't buy it. Back in 2002, a new gaming network called G4TV launched and became a cultural touchstone for many millennials. It lasted until 2014, then went on hiatus until 2021, when a new group decided to resurrect the network. G4TV alienated its audience when Indiana Black, better known as esports caster Frosk, took to the network's X-Play broadcast to scold and chastise the network's viewers over what she framed as their sexist attitudes. Instead of addressing the issue as a generalized theme, she decided to aim her comments directly at G4's audience, concluding her almost 4-minute-long diatribe by saying, "You're letting your unconscious biases ruin my day, and you're gatekeeping the gaming space. So maybe we'll be a bit nicer, a bit more self-reflective, and enjoy the fact that people are working hard to make free content for you. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Peace," she concluded to applause from her co-hosts. Her remarks quickly went viral on Twitter and received a massive backlash. There was an immediate 18% drop in hours streamed. By May, that drop-off had swelled to 70%. Given the high production costs, these numbers were not sustainable, and G4TV announced massive layoffs a couple of weeks ago, including Frosk and most of the other on-air talent. It turned out, grown adults, who also happened to be loyal viewers, took exception to a glorified podcaster taking on the mantle of a moral authority and expecting them to account and atone for their actions and attitudes. Several media and tech ventures centered on the gamer community have hit turbulence recently, but none more than G4 TV, which, after limping on throughout the year, finally had the plug pulled by Comcast. Around the same time, Billy Eichner's gay rom-com Bros tanked at the box office, earning just $4.8 million on its opening weekend. Eichner went on Twitter to vent his frustration, leveling a critique at straight people for not showing up to see the movie. Even with glowing reviews, great Rotten Tomatoes scores, an A Cinema score, etc., straight people, especially in certain parts of the country, just didn't show up for Bros, and that's disappointing, but it is what it is. At the end of the tweet, he encouraged everyone who isn't a homophobic weirdo to watch Bros in movie theaters. Even with this tweet delivered in a semi-facetious kind of tone, you can still feel the grievance and incredulity underneath. Billy Eichner is a likable and talented writer and director, but many read in his remarks a jarring inference that there is some vague onus to participate in the advance of empowering representation by showing up to films that depict progressive visibility. People aren't obliged to do so, because that's not how entertainment and the market work. Bros might be groundbreaking, but romantic comedies, as a genre, have waned at the box office over the last decade, and Bros didn't have much in the way of star power. The notion that bigotry may have contributed to the weak performance at the box office is belied by the massive audience that showed up for Moonlight and Brokeback Mountain. In the end, a film that was somewhat niche in nature just didn't appeal to cinemagoers. October was a notable month in the ongoing culture war. Creative figures in the entertainment industry found that chastising and haranguing audiences and ticket buyers for being too tardy, too disengaged, or needing to account for themselves in some way isn't going to endear them to potential customers and will likely see them lose huge numbers of existing ones. They, and Hollywood as a whole, are having to contend with the notion that ordinary mainstream people aren't necessarily engaged by activism, ideology, contrived empowerment, and messaging in entertainment. They just want to be entertained, and if it suits them, they'll look elsewhere.